Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill and Ammon's Bogus Hangout. Have everybody introduce themselves. Doc,
Hi, everybody. Doc Sheldon here of Intrinsic Value SEO.
Terry,
Terry Van Horn, retired for now.
Steve,
Steve Grinzer with Steam Driven Media.
and I'm Bill Slosky of SEO by the Sea, and I'm the Director of SEO Research for Go Fish Digital. We started discussing a Google video that came out a couple weeks ago that talked about things to look for when you're hiring an SEO. And there was some controversy involving the video because one of the things it said was you should expect an SEO to do a free technical audit of your site before you hire them to decide whether or not you want to hire them. And Steve and Terry just brought to my attention, or brought to our attention, that they had text underneath the video saying that you should probably expect to pay for that audit. And Steve mentioned that was added later, after the video had come out, and people started talking about it.
Yeah, when that video was first released, there was no caveats or anything. They just came out and said, well, you should get that for free. And that's easy for somebody who's to say when they actually, work for Google and get paid whether they show up to work or not and get 20% paid time off and all that other fun stuff. Sure, you can do all kinds of crap for free. But if you're expecting a free SEO audit, you're not going to get a very good one. You might get somebody run Screaming Frog and export the PDF and call it good, or Sitebulb and call it good, or send it to SEMrush, but you're not going to get any kind of an audit that's of any use.
Well, on a new prospect, I will generally run a Sitebulb crawl on their site, but that's for my purposes so that I can see what I'm going to quote, and they're not going to get that. Till I see some money hit my PayPal. That's my property there, buddy. And then they're going to get a whole lot more than a white label PDF, for Christ's sake. There
are a few SEO sites that have free site audits on them. One-page deals where you put your URL in, and they'll spit out a bunch of code. And it's often worth the price of they're charging for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's really limited. It's not the type of audit you would get from somebody you were paying for an audit. It doesn't provide the same kind of value. And there are, and those videos did provide some useful information. They did tell you the types of things you should expect to talk about with an SEO. It's just when it came to an SEO giving you a free audit, when we charge for technical audit, it's something that takes 30, 40 hours to create.
Yeah.
And it's not the type of thing that you can afford to do for free for everybody. Because you wouldn't be in business if you did.
Even when you take your car to get a work done, 99 times out of 100, you're going to get charged a diagnostic fee before they even tell you what's wrong with the car and what it's going to cost to fix it.
Yeah, but that's because everything's gone through a computer, and that's the diagnostic fee, hooking it up to the computer.
Well, I mean, what we do is hooking up to a computer and diagnosing the problem.
Right.
It's the same damn thing.
Yeah.
You can't expect
I can say this. In an hour and a half, I can tell you what you need to do on your website. I can't tell you how to fix it. But if you have problems, I can tell you what they are, or at least identify them for you, just by Screaming Frog. Because it gives you most of the HTML elements in it. So they also have customization. So if you asked it to also tell you when there is a bulleted list on a page, when there is, the usual boosters, You can tell quite a bit from stuff like that. I can look at the titles and it breaks it down. How many are 65? How many are this, that, and the other? You know how the length is if there's keywords in them. So if I look at the file name and I look at the title and see that there's words from each in all of them, I know that it was optimized and that there has been some work done on it. You can tell quite a bit, you know.
It helps you
How many people could do that?
identify issues, but it doesn't necessarily help you solve problems.
Well,
But,
plus, Terry,
okay,
you're
but that's why you're hiring somebody. I mean, to
Right.
just tell them these are the services that you're going to require, that helps them out a lot. Because most, I don't know how it is nowadays. I only know how I did stuff myself. But when I was reviewing a lot of SEOs, every one of them had some sort of package on their site. You don't see that so much anymore. But those kind of sites should be almost like ignored now, because you can't really tell what services a person needs until you've seen their site.
Really.
All right.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I had a video doctor's appointment.
We were talking about the video that Google came out with a couple of weeks ago, where they're saying if you're looking for an SEO, the SEO should provide a free technical audit of your website for you.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. We're still going on that, huh?
We're still going on.
I would say no.
Well, it seems like Google's added some text underneath the video now that says you should expect to pay for that audit if an SEO provides it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they amended that after the fact. It's good to hear that they did. It's sort of a shame that that's not included in the video itself. And
Yes,
some
it
people may miss it.
is. That's not right. I guess there's nothing you can do about the Google video as it is.
Well, you can educate the people beyond Google. Try and give them the real deal, not the one that somebody who isn't in our business is looking at it from their perspective.
Right. Hey, I want a free audit.
In the text, it doesn't say that. It says you should expect to pay.
Well, I'm glad at least the text says that, because
Yeah. How many people read the text? That would be the next question. I would say probably not many.
No, yeah, but
Just-
if someone is looking for an SEO audit and they say, well, Google said, it should be free, then if that's really their stumbling block, then I would guide them back to the text.
Yeah, if a prospect told me that he wanted a free audit, I think I'd just point him to Neil Patel. And see.
Yeah, right. Go for it.
Well, I think they also didn't use the right words. They should have said free review, which is not an audit, because an audit says certain things are going to be done that you couldn't do a free audit for.
Exactly.
And do the things, but I think
a review is different than an audit. And then that comes down to educating clients about what it is that you offer as a review and what it is that an audit provides. So, it's more client education.
well, I mean, when I do even a paid audit, I do the exact same things I would do on a free audit. I just don't go into the details.
Right.
You know, like when you run Screaming Frog over a site, it's designed to give you the errors,
Yes, it is.
right? Put them into a you know. So, you know, when I give the free audit, I can give them the errors that are on the website that need to be fixed, shows them how many, you know, things need, how bad the situation is. And it doesn't take me that long. I mean, to run Screaming Frog takes about what, 20 seconds?
Yeah.
And then go back and, you know, look at the results, another 15, 20 minutes.
You must be running your Screaming Frog on considerably smaller sites than I usually work on. The last one I did was 4.5 hours.
Really? Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, but you're running on a taco. You're running on a taco connection.
No, that was a 12,000 URLs, and it took 4.5 hours to run the thing.
Yeah,
I can do that. I could do that from here. I know in probably less than 10 minutes.
The point is, I don't do free site audits unless it's a business that I'm doing some pro bono stuff for, and I've decided that what I'm going to do for them, I'm not going to charge for. But no, if somebody wants to look at hiring me as an SEO, and the first thing they start out was, I need a free audit, hit the yellow pages, buddy. You're talking to the wrong guy.
yeah, yeah. That's
I'll give you 85,000 words of free content too. How's that?
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people who, from my perspective, who want you to write an article or something, and they want you to do it for free, and you know,
A free sample? Yeah.
a free sample of 1,000-word article. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I don't think so, Tim.
Not today.
The people offering me free content for my website.
Free content?
Free content. All I need to do is let them include a couple of links.
Oh, right. Yeah, I get emails like that. You know, oh, we noticed your website, blah, blah, blah.
I wouldn't even expect a couple of links. Just name me as author. That's all I want.
So I really liked your blog post from 10 years ago about blah, blah, blah. Could you?
Yeah. You know what that shows?
Put a link to our whatever it is on your post. I know I get
10-year-old blog post.
But that just shows their ignorance. Because you know what? I'll bet you Google gives very little value to a site, to a link in a blog post that goes off site.
Yeah.
That's been added 10 years later? Yeah, probably.
Or at any time.
Or at any time.
We call them niche edits.
Pardon me?
They call those niche edits, where they go back through and edit real old posts.
I do
And they
that.
get good.
I do that all the time. That's actually a good technique to, you know, you find the old posts that rank and have page rank and link them to a newer post, and you'd be surprised how much that other post goes up. I mean, that's SEO 101.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do a fresh article with links off the site, those get very, very little value, I bet. That's why I never fought for them. I never asked and said, oh, if you want my content, you got to have links in it. Because I would think you're a fool to do it to begin with.
To publish someone else's content? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even ask for them. All I want's, you know, the regular author bio where you usually link to the site anyhow. Google doesn't want to see a bunch of deep links to your site anyhow. Those days of doing SEO with deep linking are like, that's not natural. That's not actually a natural link.
I have very little interest in posting somebody else's blog post on my site.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the way I feel. My site is about me.
Uh,
Do you do that? Post something. Somebody else.
yeah, I'll do it if it's good content. If Bill wanted to put something on my site in a minute, no problem, because he knows stuff I don't, and
Well,
vice versa.
when I get some business school that wants to post a blog post about something that has nothing to do with any content I ever write about, and they're offering it to me for free, and it's about how much value I have in it.
Right. Well, that's like for a site like yours, right? I would never just say, hey, can I put some content on your site? First, I'd try and get to meet you, form some sort of relationship, and try and make something that even goes farther and say, hey, once a month, I'll do an article on your site and you can do one on mine.
There are ways to build relationships that actually involve being friendly, being courteous, being kind.
You'd be surprised. Like a lot of SEOs are surprised when you say, for instance, call them instead of just sending them an email.
Common courtesy still works. I hope.
Well, especially if you actually go to the website and, look at their content. And when you call them, you can actually say, hey, I read this. This is pretty good.
Yeah.
A
little bit of overture, like you say, establish a relationship. Whether it's a comment on their post or even sharing on Facebook with a comment about a really great post I saw over here. You establish some sort of relationship, and you do that
for sure.
Now you've got a dialogue, a reason to have a dialogue. Getting a cold email from somebody who wants a link is not a reason.
Also, when you do things that way, I also didn't like to do one-off posts. I try and set up that relationship with that website and get several posts on there. A lot of people wouldn't like to do that, but I think that actually looks more natural because there you're syndicating yourself on that site.
I know a guy who is his whole theory on bringing somebody else onto his blog is he brings them in like an interview or a pro-con discussion. Here's why I like this. Here's why Jim doesn't, and he'll give the guy a link to his site. But now it's something that actually provides some value, and he's had pretty good luck gaining traffic with those things. You're hitting a double audience, and there seems to be a little bit more credibility involved in it. And sometimes they'll flat go at each other, not in a nasty way, but I mean they'll totally disagree with each other about how good a tool is or how good a product is or whatever. And I think that's a brilliant way to get somebody else's content onto your site without it looking artificial in Google's eyes or in the user's eyes. And it brings value. And what they do is they'll do it alternate. We'll do it this month on my site. We'll do it next month on your site, on different topics.
Yeah.
And it's working real well for both of them. But again, you're showing that there's some sort of an interest in a relationship, some common interest or disagreement or whatever it may be, before you try to milk the guy for a free link. And by all means, refer to that link as do follow. Another
Actual,
of mine.
Yeah, I don't worry about that either.
I don't
care if they,
No,
if it's on a good site, I don't care because I know Google's giving it value either way.
I agree. I just see red when I see somebody put in quotes, do follow, like this is something W3C has called.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean now, yeah.
And I have actually seen people code do follow into their HTML.
Yeah.
Blows your mind.
They probably think it's an actual
Yeah.
coding element.
Or, well, you lost me at probably think, Terry.
Yeah. Yeah. Those references, you don't really need to use those, you know. You use them as little as possible.
It's like having a robot's meta tag that's an index follow tag.
Yeah.
So why do you have that?
You don't need to do that. Saw something interesting posted today. I think it was Mark Trackpagan that had a thread on Facebook that the topic came up. Wouldn't this have been a great time for G Plus Hangouts not to have disappeared?
That's true.
Didn't they start offering those again for free?
I doubt very seriously they'll ever bring them back.
No, I don't think so. There's Hangout Meet for.
They're still available for businesses, but I don't think that they're ever going to bring back G Plus like it was.
No.
No, I thought the Hangouts, the Hangouts themselves, is something they started offering free again.
Oh,
really?
because of coronavirus?
Free?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, they didn't rebuild Google Plus.
No,
So
they're
they
not going to
Yeah.
rebuild Google Plus, unfortunately.
Well,
But
that was even before they shut down G Plus. That had been pulled into YouTube anyway. So I wasn't aware that
Yeah,
they had that for free.
The tools were pretty good on the Hangout.
Yeah, they were.
mhm.
Yeah, I was sad to see them go. I am not as impressed with the usability of their business Hangout structure.
That's got to be Bill's place.
No,
No, that was mine.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Somebody practicing some high-speed isolation on the road going by there.
Virus can't catch me fast.
They like to race up and down here in front of me with on one wheel. They'll have 3 or 4 crotch rockets out there doing wheelies for a block and a half.
One of the things that's happened in Portland since the lockdown is because the streets are so empty. They're having people are holding speed races like on the bridges that go across the river and stuff.
Mhm.
It's something that's been happening. People do speed races on the roads.
now my neighborhood's a sleepy little suburban neighborhood, and we barely have people going faster than 20 or so on my streets. The garbage truck might do a little bit more than that, but not too much.
Well, from what I remember of Carlsbad, Bill, you can probably hear the foot traffic go by. It's such a quiet little town.
It's pretty close, yeah.
Yeah. Are you right near Ponto?
No, I'm about 10 minutes away from Ponto.
Oh, okay. Because when I lived there, I lived like 5 minutes away, including waiting for the train to cross.
Yeah.
So,
It go up El Camino Real about a mile or so
oh, okay.
from La Casa Avenue. And I'm not too far from there.
I miss seeing the dolphins.
Looking forward to being able to walk on the beach again.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Talk about dolphins. The only time I was ever in the ocean at Del Mar, a friend of mine had a party down there on the beach, and I was out there. I was swimming like 75 or 100 yards out, and 4 or 5 dolphins came by, and I just happened to dive under a wave about the time one of them went by in front of me.
Yeah.
And all I saw was something about 8 feet long, gray, going like a bat out of hell. And I thought, this ain't going to end well. I started stroking for the beach, and then I saw the fins. I thought, okay, that's a relief. This is not a rerun of Jaws here. I thought sure as hell I was getting ready to be something's lunch.
Oh man. They play with the surfers a lot.
Say again, Sarah?
The dolphins play with the surfers, when the surfers
Oh,
are
yeah.
out. And the dolphins play with them. I know I used to go down to the beach a lot. I wanted the perfect shot, surfer, dolphin, and sunset all in the same shot. I think it took me like 5 years. I finally got it, but
Don't see too many dolphins from beach at Carlsbad.
oh well, that's where I saw them. You see the little black dots, and then you wait, and you see them. They're out there.
We get quite a few of them off the beach here at certain times of the year. Sometimes you'll look out there and you'll see 15 or 20 of them.
Yeah.
And they're just running back and forth, checking out the swimmers.
Playing in the waves.
Yep.
To go spend more time at the beach.
Speaking of Google Hangouts, my local medical facility, the hospital here, is doing video office visits, so keep everybody safe and everything. And so the doctor was having trouble getting the video part set up and everything. And I'm like, whoa, all those hangouts, all those years. It's like, this is old hat. For a lot of people, all this stuff is very new.
They were really pushing video conferencing with doctors here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like the Scripps hospitals were adopting. A lot of general practitioners.
Oh, and general practitioners as well.
Yeah. No, save you half an hour on the road driving to your doctor's office.
Yeah. Half hour away from where you are to Scripps is like a half hour both each way. But it's a cool drive. I always like to Scripps on the ocean way because it's just so wonderful. Why take the freeway when you can go by the ocean? And most of the time, before all of this stuff happened, most of the time, it didn't take any longer to go on the coast route than it did to go on the freeway.
Steve, I was watching something on TV this morning. Some real rich guy talking about the guy who owned Starbucks originally.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying how the government gave all the money to the wrong people, that most of the small independent restaurants are going to go broke before the government gives them any money. Mm-hmm. You were in that business. What do you think?
Oh, that's old news already. What happened was the larger national chains declared each location as a small business and got a check for each one of them.
Oh, is that how that happened?
Yeah, because none
And
of the
because
towns had more than 500. Sure, they soaked up millions of dollars.
and because they are large corporate businesses with direct relationships with large corporate banks, they got their paperwork shuffled to the top of the stack and were given money first.
So
And
one
that
of,
depleted everybody else.
Oh, it's
so
gone. That
yeah.
money is
Oh, yeah,
virtually
it's
gone now.
So one of
It,
them
it was
gave back
yesterday,
$10 million yesterday.
Yeah, I guess Shake Shack gave their money back because they realized that, hey, this isn't right.
They just
no,
spent
they're
$100 million in equity funding the day before they got the 10 million.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
it wasn't all
Yeah.
that altruistic on
See,
Shake
they
Shack.
have facilities that a small business doesn't have. I mean, there's probably lots of them that their banker doesn't even know that they're a restaurant,
Right.
or they treat
That's
them
also-
differently.
So
our local bank.
they just
our
added
local bank.
$390 billion to that stimulus package yesterday. So there'll be more checks to more small businesses and maybe large
No,
businesses too.
they didn't do it yet. They still haven't voted on it.
No, they
They're
haven't
supposed to vote
done
on
it yet. They're talking about it, but they haven't done it. I think
And
the
they're out,
Democrats are
and they're in
blocking.
recess. They've gone down on recess until something like May 14th, I think it is.
Well, Gina just posted in the sidebar in the comments that they did pass it and it was 470 billion.
Oh,
That's still not near enough. Not even close.
well,
I mean, the
I got my
Canadian
bid in,
government
so-
gave that much to our businesses, for Christ's sake.
So we'll see. Have to turn it
See,
in.
here we didn't give money to corporations. It was more people who were affected, just lined up, got $2,000 right off the top. They were more about giving it to the people. Big companies, I hope they just tell them, fuck, if you failed, you failed. Sorry.
Well,
No
this
money
was
for you.
This was a separate program that they gave checks to individuals previously, and they're talking about doing more of that. But this was a program where they were trying to give businesses enough money to cover their payrolls. And it was a forgiveness program. If you use the money you've got,
But you know what? Payrolls,
yeah,
they lay those people are laid off. They don't have to pay them. The government should be paying them. Here, they automatically went on what we call EI, or now it's CERB or whatever.
yeah.
But-
The purpose behind the legislation was to avoid having people go through unemployment. So they were trying to circum.
I
Then-
know in England where my daughter and her husband live, they have what is called furlough, where they receive a percentage of the salary they had while they were working full time, but they're still receiving money. Whereas here, the only option for individuals is unemployment, and that seems to be
Some businesses are offering furloughs.
A lot of them are furloughing because I hear it on the business news. This company furloughed 10,000.
Because they want to keep on employing the people, but they don't want the people to go without a check.
right.
Well, you can get so far in the hole that you can't work. Been there. I can tell you all about it. And when I was younger, I'd been there. If it wasn't for the government, it'd be still probably there.
Yeah. And we have places like New York where they can't keep up with all the unemployment claims.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, but when you think about it, right? the population is so dense there, it probably could have been a lot worse.
That's true.
You know, figure everybody's going up and down in an elevator. That's a pretty confined space.
Very
Yeah,
confined.
social distancing doesn't work well in elevators.
Even walking down the street on a normal day, you couldn't distance there, 6 feet between people. They'd be lined up to get into the fucking street.
Walking down the sidewalk in New York City, you're doing real well just not to get jostled and bump into somebody, much less to be 2 meters away.
I think things are going to really change myself.
Oh, super. Yeah.
I think a lot of businesses are looking at this and thinking, I don't need all this office space. Even a doctor could say, I'll just go into the office twice a week. The other 3 days, I'll do it all from home. And they'll share the office space or something like that.
You know, I saw something yesterday, Bill, you'll identify this. I'm sure you can remember some judges who might have had a word or two. They were doing these, trying to open up for some court cases via teleconference. And this judge was going off because lawyers were showing up for a case with no shirt on. One gal, a female lawyer, was literally in bed under the covers to represent the client. Man, I just can imagine some judge saying, "Off with his head," you know.
Oh no, that's amazing.
Unbelievable.
We were holding arraignments in the court I worked at, where the prisoners would stay at the prison, and the judge would have the hearing by video.
Yeah,
which made things a lot easier because you didn't have to transport people.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to guard, monitor them. Yeah. And having that type of video conferencing really helped the court system.
Sure.
Yeah, and on a really, really hard case, they'd be going for years where the guy just has to go to court every so often to keep staying it, right?
Well, just
move it forward.
Just the case throughput alone would be a massive improvement because now, you don't have all that lost time from case to case. You can just move them through there. A judge could do 20 guys in a half day.
Yeah. Court hearings would take place on time. They wouldn't be delayed by hours.
Exactly.
And yeah, that type of economy of personnel and all would be useful for most businesses if they adopted those types of practices. It's like the doctors doing video conferencing now.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense to do that in a lot of cases where you don't actually need physicals and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because some stuff they can do right over the phone now, eh? Like take your temperature and stuff. In their apps to do that?
I don't know, but I know for my meeting today, they had all the stuff they usually do at intake, like your height, your weight, your temperature, your blood pressure. They ask you to do that at home. So I just did all that and then gave them the numbers,
There are apps that you could have on your smartphone that will take your pulse rate. I guess they're gonna have to trust the patient to give the correct weight and height, and they don't have any way to necessarily check blood pressure unless the patient has the equipment for it. But your pulse rate and temperature, you can do that via an app. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I have a wrist thing to do blood pressure because I have to monitor my blood pressure. But
Is it Omni? Is it an Omni device?
What?
The company Omni makes a blood pressure monitor, a wrist monitor.
I think she's just talking about a sphygmomanometer, aren't you, Sarah?
It could be an Omni. I don't know who makes it, Bill. It's but it's a wrist device. You just strap it on with a Velcro and press the button, and it goes squishes everything, and then it reads your blood pressure and takes your heart rate.
They're gonna do virtual parliament here, I guess, in a few weeks.
Really, virtual parliament.
It'd be like the Congress and whatnot in the States.
Right.
So they're going to do it virtually.
Hmm.
It's just Jawabool anyhow. Question period. One says it's black, the other says it's white, and then they all bang the desk for a while.
Right.
Terry, you remember back in the 60s when we thought that Khrushchev had gone off his nut for pounding his shoe on the podium?
Right.
Yeah.
He looks sane these days, doesn't he?
Yes.
I'm not sure these daily presidential press conferences are helping.
No, I'm not sure I want to even go there.
I think if I had kids, I'd keep them out of the living room when that stuff was on.
I just would not turn it on. I do not turn it on.
I watch it all the time. I find
Do
it
you?
interesting.
Oh, I have so much trouble listening. And
Up until about a week ago, I was trying real hard to watch the dailies, and it's just got to the point now where about 5 minutes in, it just hurts. It's painful to hear him try to communicate without saying the same thing for the 17th time, which is still a lie after the first 16. You know, I'd last maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and I say, screw this, and I'm out of here. You know, why am I wasting my time listening to this garbage?
Yeah.
It's just really painful.
Here each province has a conference, and the large cities, and the government.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, Kim.
How are you?
Starts at 11 in the morning and finishes about 4 in the afternoon.
Really?
It's good to see all the politicians on the, hot seat because there's no protective equipment for the hospitals here. And the government keeps getting shipments of empty planes. It gets on a plane in China and never gets here.
Yeah. Yeah,
they can't figure out where it's going.
Apparently, there's been some seizures of en route shipments by the U.S. government too.
I read that.
Trump did that once here, and then he said he wouldn't do it again.
With the multi-million masks from 3M?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All we'd have to say is, okay, we're going to stop nurses and stuff going across the border to Detroit, and all the hospitals would be empty. Guy doesn't think anything through. You can see it as he's talking now. Half it's kind of semi-true. And I wonder, does his arm get sore patting himself on the back like that?
The day after
he's got to have a sore shoulder.
With guidelines to reopen America, he starts egging on protesters in Michigan, Virginia, and Minnesota.
Yep.
They're doing that. Detroit, too.
It just.
But he
trying to keep it clean here, so I'm not going to say anything.
But I can understand. Like I've forever, couldn't understand how here in Canada we elected a prime minister who basically said, "Yeah, I stole from y'all." right? And 2
Yeah.
months later, they voted him in again. Could never understand that. Trump, same deal. Couldn't understand how someone could vote this guy in. Then you think about what he's saying to all those people in those states that you talked about. They all lost their jobs to China, and China's his big, one of his big, you know, you can tell he wants to get them.
Yeah, it's a big brother. Yeah.
But, you know, China's doing it to themselves. Like, I know the government here's basically saying we're not going to buy any more PPE and the protective gear in China. We're going to make it all here.
The problem is the United States really isn't in a position to be able to take that kind of position because there is so much critical componentry and subassemblies that we're getting out of China that this is not a battle we need, because if we start saying we're not going to buy any more of this sort of componentry from you, they can say, okay, we're not going to sell any of this, and they would essentially shut down what little industry we have left in the U.S. Electronics, for instance. Electronic componentry is like 93% out of China. And what the hell
if they ever refused to sell it to anybody, they would be out of business.
Well, who would go out of business first, though, buddy?
If they have nowhere to sell it,
they might not be able to sell those components, but without those components, if they refuse to ship them to us, we would be out of business a whole lot faster. You know, so it's not the kind of pissing contest that we can afford to get into.
It's codependent.
Well, it is codependent. The thing is, Terry, you know, if you're the one that's giving me my apartment rent, you know, you're renting me an apartment, and I'm giving you a ride back and forth to work. If you to tell me that, you know, you're not going to, if I tell you I'm not going to give you a ride anymore, you might raise the rent on me.
So I burned down
or
the
you might
apartment.
give me an eviction.
No, I burned down the apartment. That's what Trump would do.
Well, yeah, that's what Trump would do. And that, you know, if we get into that kind of pissing contest with China, that's what would happen. The apartment would be burned down.
Oh, yeah, it wouldn't be. It'd be the same as a nuclear war, mutual destruction. You know,
Canada is
no
not
winners.
in a position of being so dependent upon Chinese exports. So, you know, the damage that would be done to the Canadian economy would be a lot less than what would be done to the U.S. economy, because we're totally dependent on Chinese components.
Yeah, but China's almost is well, maybe not. A lot of the pulp that goes into some of those masks comes from Canada.
Well, the pulps, that's fine. Well, go ahead and wrap some pulp around your face and see how that works for you. The thing is, pharmaceuticals and electronics, U.S.
Look, they're not doing anything in China that's proprietary. That any other company in Canada or the United States could do it.
How long do you think we could survive in the U.S. without electronic components or pharmaceuticals? How many Americans would die without the pharmaceuticals, 91% of which come from China? Okay?
I agree.
The pharmaceuticals used in the U.S. originate in China. Now, they may originate from U.S. companies, but how long would it take for that U.S. company to instead build and crank up a factory in another country? How many people would die in the interim? You know, we're just not in a position. We allowed ourselves to get in this vulnerability, and now we got to live with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to start looking at that and
I hope so.
Rethinking it.
But it can't be fixed overnight. It took a long time to get us into this mode, and it's going to take a gentle hand to get us out of it.
Yeah, just think if this really went bad in China and killed half the people there, and all the manufacturing's being done over there.
Yeah,
going to run out of stuff pretty quick, bud.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, the good news, if you want to look at it that way, is that there's an awful lot of countries that are very, very dependent upon Chinese exports, which means that there's an awful lot of countries for whom it's a major interest to keep peace in the South China Sea and the North China Sea. They don't want to see a conflict. So there's a lot of international concession and pressure to keep things on an even keel. So, the thing, like I said it before, and I'll say it again, we think our long-term planning is 5-year plan, 10-year plan. The Chinese plan in terms of generations, 10 generations, 15 generations. They're perfectly content to wait 200 years for this plan to come to fruition because that's the way they have always thought and planned. And, this is not something that they cooked up in the 1950s or 60s. They've been working on this since the mid-1800s to become a major economic power in the world. And they've done it very well, and we've helped them because it was financially advantageous for us too. Not an accident.
I have a question.
Hi, Kim.
Yeah.
What?
Not exactly SEO oriented, but if you were going to put on a webinar or a series of webinars, what would you use? Free ones. Would you use Zoom or I just followed a conference on YouTube that was for free. They did a pretty good job with it too.
Zoom's webinar capability is not free. Okay.
Wow.
You have to have a pro membership. Or actually, it's not a pro membership. They have two separate services. They have the Zoom, and then they have the Zoom webinars. And I don't recall what the cost is. It's not tremendous, but there is a cost to it.
I think it's like $40 a month or something
It may be. I don't know.
for
I've
the
never looked.
for the webinar part of Zoom.
Okay.
I was looking at some.
So Kim, if you're just doing a webinar and you have a presentation, as you said, you just watch one on YouTube. Why couldn't you use YouTube Live?
I don't know. They did a really good job. It was an accessibility conference that didn't get to take place. So several of the speakers got together and gave their talks through an organized conference on YouTube. And I'd never seen anybody do it that way before. So they had sessions, and you could just go there and watch for free on YouTube.
So, but they weren't. Then they weren't live. They were pre-recorded.
They were live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'd never seen anything like it. I don't know how they did it.
Nor have I.
Dave's done that before on Zoom.
On Zoom?
I think he does it through, get a hold of Dave. He knows how to do it.
Which Dave?
Harry.
David Harry.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
I just assume when I say David, my partner. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure because he takes questions on Yahoo when we're doing our Hangouts. Or not Yahoo, but YouTube.
Why couldn't you use what we're using here, which is StreamYard?
Dave wouldn't pay. He's probably Zoom because he didn't want to pay for it.
Oh, I see.
Is this a paid subscription you have, Bill?
No, it's free.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a free version. I've used it on with my private group on Facebook.
You know
I
what?
recently did a webinar with another company through Webinar Jam. I just posted a link to the chat.
Never heard of that one.
And that
Me neither.
it had a lot of it had a lot of features that were beneficial to somebody putting on some type of group presentation like Kim just described.
Yeah, I think that's something like how David does it because he can't send the messages through YouTube anymore. That was the thing that we found a little hard was you can't do the announcing that you used to be able to do on Google Plus Hangouts, which were
So I
quite
think
useful.
Yeah, I think there's a monthly fee for this webinar jam,
Yeah, I think
but
there is.
it has some nice features.
Yeah, that they would probably need PowerPoint and access or the ability to be seen by over 100 people if
Yeah.
it's, mimicking a conference.
I was actually looking at a software to do training and school, like a school setting. It's
Mhm.
called I'll email you the name of it, but you can actually do a lesson and the whole thing right in the software. And it gives you a virtual classroom.
Oh, that's
It's a MOOC. It's
Pardon
a
me?
MOOC. A MOOC.
A MOOC.
It's called a MOOC. MOOC.
No,
M-O-O.
no, I forget the name of it now. I got it written down somewhere.
I was going to suggest Broadcast has all those abilities,
Actually,
but paid service.
oh, it's on another computer. I get it now, but I'll email it to you later.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
was looking at a few of them.
Yeah, I would assume that more and more conferences are going to go this route if they, no travel, et cetera, et cetera. So what's the best way, and you can invite your speakers and do it. It's just online instead of in person.
Well, Zoom went from 20 million users to 200 million in a couple months.
Wow.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I think a lot of people are more familiar with it, but I didn't know if there was any options.
Zoom is the one that was all over the business channel,
Mhm.
Yeah.
talking about it as remote technology for teleconferencing.
Yeah, it might even be the most accessible. I might have to think about that too.
That's what's funny, watching people that are doing stuff from home. One of the things I usually think to myself is, why don't you get something better than a $10 internet connection?
Yeah.
If you're
Because
going
not
to do
everybody.
these things.
The huge correlation between
I understand with you, but these are people living in New York City, for Christ's sake.
But you're assuming that they are still in New York City. A lot of people who had the ability left.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gina just put up Moodle. I think I have used Moodle before.
Moodle.
It was an educational site. That might have been where Kalina had her courses when we, when she was teaching search engine stuff. I think that was Moodle.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
If you do a virtual classroom search on Google, lists a whole bunch of. I went through a bunch when I was looking for something to use. The one I eventually decided on was free for up to 5 people, and then afterwards it had different size, like for the size of the classroom, but you could get fairly large. So that's the problem with a lot of these systems is they can't handle more than maybe 10 people on it once.
Right. Yeah,
So the
especially
Worldwide Web Conference is going next week, and they're using Zoom. So it's being adopted by lots of academic conventions or conferences and so on.
Yeah, Zoom's got some security issues, so I don't know that I'd want to do it on it.
Yeah, but
you know what I like about this
the security issues. The security issues that exist with Zoom, though, are really easily resolved depending on how you set it up. The problem is that people are using the default setup, which allows somebody to just, if they have the link, bang, they're in. And guys are coming in and they're showing porn, they're bad mouthing people. All you have to do is enable the waiting room and if you want to, you can have a password,
Mm.
and you put them in the waiting room so that you get to see who's in the waiting room. Like Bill here has to admit us into this room. Same
It
type
has
of
the
thing.
waiting room too.
It's optional. All you have to do is tick the box, And I pay like
Except
$14.95 a month for Zoom, and I have 100 people that can use the account, simultaneously.
I think the hard part about that, Doug, because my Pacific Northwest Writers Group met on Saturday with Zoom, and the hard part is if you're doing something big, open like a webinar, like Kim is suggesting,
Mhm.
you need to know the names of every person, and so in order to let them in. And like we didn't know everybody's name, we had no idea who everybody's name was for that meeting.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. So if you invite a lot of people, you have to know them by name in order to let them in.
Yeah, we did a large one the other day. We had about 60 people show up, and what we did there is we set it up. And again, it was a check the box thing. We set up a password so
Right.
that they could only get to the waiting room if they had the password. Unfortunately, like an idiot, I got myself thrown in Facebook jail because I used Facebook Messenger to send the password to all the registrants.
Oh no.
And Facebook didn't like me tagging that many people, even though it was a PM. And they threw me in jail.
Yeah, I saw your message on that. That was weird.
Yeah, that was
just a little.
weird.
So it wouldn't show 100 people on it once, right? It'll
You know
only
what it
let
does?
some.
In Zoom, it'll give you up to 25. It'll give you 5 rows of 5 people on your screen. And
Oh, really?
If there's more than 25, you'll see a little arrow carrot off to the side, and you can scroll over to the next screen of 25 and the next screen of 25. So if you've got 99 people, you're going to have 4 full screens and 1 with 24. Okay, and which makes it kind of difficult because it's nice when somebody is speaking, you'll get a little yellow highlight on their box if they're speaking, if they're up on your screen. But if somebody that's on one of the other screens is speaking, you have no idea who's talking until you scroll through all of them real quick.
Oh, that makes it hard as a presenter.
I found out after the fact there is a way that you just set up your display that it'll automatically highlight just the face of just the person who's speaking full screen.
Mhm.
So you temporarily, while their mic is activated, you temporarily lose everybody else, but at least you know who's talking to you.
Right.
Zoom will work. And now this is not the webinar service. This is just the Zoom conferencing service. I can't speak to the webinar aspect, Kim, because I've never actually used it.
Yeah.
But I was very impressed with the way they went through their testing, and the security issues with Zoom are easily resolved. They've addressed them all. You can fix it. You just have to close some of the holes in the screen door before you go to dive.
Okay. Good. Glad I asked. I've been tasked to figure this one out. So
Does it have to be free?
does it have to be what?
Free.
They want to do it free.
Okay.
Yeah. Looking for sponsors, but free for participants.
I see. Understood.
We're at the top of the hour, everyone, so I'm going to call the show for today. Thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.